a little philosophy of dates first before I talk about how I implement dates in Rome research. By and large, unless a task has a specific, it has to be done at 1 o'clock on Friday, like it's a meeting or something like that. I'm not going to tag it with a date, and I'm not going to. Well, I should say I'm not going to put it on my calendar. I don't want my calendar cluttered with things. That's a David Allen thing that I've found extremely useful over the years. I don't want my calendar to be bogged down with things that are not actually time relevant. When I use these dates in Roam, I'll use them sometimes to tag a due date to make sure that a day doesn't go by that I have lost track of. And now when I say due there, I mean DUE. And I'll also use what I call due dates. I didn't make that up. I did what I call due dates, DO dates. I don't use that as much for the reason as I mentioned about the calendar. I don't want to clutter up with things. It's useful, however, in planning. Say I'm looking at my next action list, 3 days before something needs to be done, and I'm like, you know what? I have a nice open block of time on Thursday. Let me make a note for myself to do this on Thursday, and I'll do a due date. So I'll give you an example here what I mean by that. Let's say Tom's recommendation letter is due on May 3rd, 2020. I could use the date picker, but I usually find myself just typing them out. So now I know that when I get to May 3rd, down here in the linked references, this to do is going to show up. And it's the whole line of to do. But as soon as you click here, it's going to show up. With the clicker, you could click it, do that, and filter out done if you want. So it's not going to show up there anymore. And so forth and so on. That way you can make sure that what shows up is still relevant to what you're doing. So that's one easy way to make sure that things are showing up on the days when they're supposed to show up. I mentioned the DO due dates. Maybe I say, okay, well, I would like to get this done on the 1st of May because I have space that Friday. I would say, due on May 1st. I don't have that in here. That's what you get for having a second account here that you don't is not your main one. So now I have that due there, and that means when I arrive on May 1st, just like I did with the other, and that's going to show up in my linked references. And now I use linked references heavily for recurring tasks and for dates because that way I don't have to be jumping around into other pages and throwing them in here. I think it's one of that is a key component of the power of Roam is that things will show up linked as references where you need them to be. And this is what makes task management possible in Roam. What makes a lot of stuff possible in Roam, but especially this task management in this context. So you can also, if this is an ongoing project or something, you could create something like start date and throw that out there and say, well, that's going to start April 30th, and we'll do that. And you can build it however you want. The thing that I'm so excited about, and maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but the thing I'm so excited about with Roam is the power of these attributes down the road. They don't do a whole lot now, but I've been using them regularly. Like, for instance, I use them for building out these associative data points here for the person. And I do that because I just believe, based on what they've said, that these attributes are going to become significantly more powerful as we move forward. You can already build a simple table from them without having to do much work. So, but this is it. There isn't anything too complicated about it. That's going to show up. Well, I'm on April 30th. So down here you can see that I've got a start date that's showing up. Dates are super simple. Just throw them in there. I do the DUE, the due, depending on, maybe I could be a little more British there and get liquid U, due, a due, and a start date, or whatever. You can throw those attributes down there however you want. But when they show up on those dates, it's also going to show up with the relevant attribute front and center. And you can click on this to be able to see the whole shebang. You can go in here and you can see how you can click here and see how everything functions, and click on this and it'll take you the whole way back up the chain without ever having to go anywhere. So that's all. That's dates. It's a pretty straightforward thing. That's how I make sure that the right tasks show up on the right days. Whether that's a date I just want to do it, it's a date a project starts, it's a date it has to be done. Those things are all going to show up. Next video, I'll talk about how I implement next lists, waiting lists, and how I use that for planning a day by embedding tasks.